In this video, I want to share with you some really cool and surprising stuff about this watch. What's up guys, Ryan here. This is a Pixel watch, Google's first attempt at capturing a share of the smartwatch market under their own brand. Well, unless you take into account the Fitbit brand, which is owned by Google. But when this watch came out 4 months ago, it got absolutely trashed by a lot of reviewers, probably including myself. But I think a lot of us have been blindsided by the things that it doesn't have rather than the things it does. And I have a theory about why it's got these problems that's caused a lot of frustration among some people. Let's start with the design of the watch. It has a very sleek and polished circular design with a dome-shaped glass, a physical crown and another physical button. Google says, and I'm quoting, "This domed glass makes this sleek smartwatch fit for anything." And I think what they're referring to is fashion-wise it fits anything. That's probably true. And I haven't heard many complaints about the design of the watch, except that it's a bit small for some people and the bezel is too big. But I personally see the biggest weakness of this watch in its dome-shaped design, which just makes this watch very prone to all kinds of scratches or even breaking if you're not very careful. So they could have at least used Gorilla Glass Victus to make it a little more tough. And the funny thing is that the other side of the casing where the sensors are is also dome-shaped, and I'm totally okay with that because the reason for that is actually functional because it improves the accuracy of the sensors. But here's the thing. For me personally, this watch hasn't been comfortable enough because I can pretty much all the time feel that dome on my wrist. And when I say it's not comfortable enough, I don't really mean it's uncomfortable, okay? Just to be clear. And here's a surprising fact. As much as I also hated the big bezel, just like most people do, as soon as I started using the watch, I just forgot about it, literally. It really wasn't a big deal anymore. But all right, let's get to the meat and potatoes of it. Let me tell you this, guys. The Pixel watch has a processor from Samsung from a few years ago that even they don't use anymore. But in terms of the UI, it's been one of the smoothest watches I've ever tried, and I mean buttery smooth. Yes, there are some occasional lags here and there, but it's been definitely one of the best, and it just makes it really satisfying to use the watch. And you can either scroll by touch or by rotating the crown, which by the way has this haptic feedback. And man, is it just so satisfying to scroll up and down with it. The second button isn't completely useless, but I use it less. If you press it once, it'll show you the recent apps, and if you press and hold, then it'll activate Google Assistant, which is a powerful feature in itself. For example, you can quickly set a reminder or a timer or take notes, which is very useful. And you can also access Google Assistant from the apps menu as well. If you swipe down or turn the crown this way, you'll see the quick panel with some shortcuts. So these shortcuts are display lock, flashlight, Google Pay, flight mode, find my phone, display brightness, bedtime mode, do not disturb mode, theater mode, battery, then settings, and then a ring on and off button. Most of these are very useful shortcuts, but one problem that I found with the display lock is that once it's on, you can't tap the display to wake the watch, and you just have to raise your wrist or press a button to see the watch face. If you press the crown, then you'll see the applications view, and if you're wondering, then what's the difference between pressing this crown to get to the apps and pressing the second button? Well, first of all, pressing the button only shows you the recent apps. But the other difference is that even if the watch is asleep, if you press the button, you can see the apps unless it's locked. But pressing the crown will only wake the watch first, and only pressing it a second time will show you all the apps. Swiping up or turning the crown this way shows the notifications, and there's something interesting about the notifications that I really like, a feature so many smartwatches don't have, including Google's Fitbit watches. So sometimes when you get a notification and it has a picture, you can see that image like a tweet, as well as a text in the notifications, which is something new to me, like a picture from a tweet, like I said, or some other apps. And once you have a new notification that you haven't seen, then you'll see a dot at the bottom of the watch face. But the other super cool feature is that the long text messages don't get truncated. I mean, maybe there's a limit, but I've tested some really long messages via WhatsApp, and I could see all of them on the watch. Sometimes I still don't get the full text of some emails though, but you know, this is still very cool that I can just see the whole message on the watch, and I'm able to reply directly on the watch. And I can use either the keyboard or use the voice to text feature to send messages. All right, swiping either left or right shows you all the available widgets or tiles. So for example, the first one is the steps, and you can tap to see all the details of it. But what's funny is that if you go back, it doesn't go back to the previous view, but another view with different stats like the floors, distance, calories burned, resting heart rate, and so on. And again, if you tap, you'll see even more details. So this is very nice, but I just don't understand the logic here, you know, user experience wise, that you'd have to go to the steps, then go back to see this. And as someone who's reviewed Fitbit smartwatches, I can tell you one thing for sure. The step counting is just not good, just like the Fitbit watches. I mean, for some reason, it just counts a lot more. The next view is the heart rate, and it shows the heart rate for the past 2 hours. And this watch has a feature which really helps with reliability of heart rate reading, and that is that it measures the heart rate every second. But the downside of it is that it affects the battery life. Some Garmin watches have smart data gathering and every second data gathering. They could have offered something similar to that so that we could choose which one we want, with one being more accurate than the other one, less battery consuming. There are some other widgets here too. I've deleted some of them and added some other stuff. You can do the same thing, just tap and hold to add or remove widgets or tiles, or even reorder them. One very important widget here is the sleep score, and the beautiful thing about that is that you can see your sleep stats even without the need to sync the watch to your phone. You may think that this is not a big deal, but Fitbit watches have this thing that you have to sync the watch and phone first to be able to see the sleep cycle details on the watch. Or at least that's how they were last time I checked. Not sure if that's still the case. So very useful when you get up in the morning and you just want to quickly see how you slept last night. So about the sleep tracking feature, I noticed that the deep sleep and REM have been unusually low, and this has been very consistent a few days of wearing the watch. I also noticed while it does a good job tracking when I fall asleep, the wake up time is always a little off. But overall, the sleep tracking is alright, especially if you take into account the more detailed analytics that you can get with the Fitbit app. And that brings us to the next point, the fact that you have a dedicated app for the watch to manage the watch itself, and then another one for the detailed stats about you. And even that one's behind the paywall. And I really don't like that you'd have to pay a monthly fee just to see your data in a readable format. But at least there is a 6-month free trial, and after that, if you want to use the watch on a budget, you can just subscribe for a month or two and then cancel and repeat the same thing every few months to see what's changed about you, because most of the time our stats don't change that often. There's still a whole lot of features that this watch has. So if you press the crown, you can see all of the apps on the watch. I can't cover all of them in this video, but if you just visit the Play Store on the watch, you can see all the things you can install on your watch. And that ranges from productivity apps to even games. And remember to always keep your apps up to date by scrolling to the bottom and going to Manage Apps. For example, for some reason, I didn't have the ECG app on the watch, but when I went to the Google Play Store, there was an update for it. And after that, it showed up in the list of my installed apps. And the way it works is that you place your finger on the crown and it runs a 30-second test to see if you have any signs of aFib or not. Just remember that you need to be over 22 years old and you're not pregnant. So you can wear the Pixel Watch to track your activities too, and there are many of these sports to track. But like I said in the beginning of the video, because of the curved display, you have to be really careful with what you do. And I was really worried about damaging it, but I still did a strength training session with it. Like most smartwatches, the heart rate accuracy wasn't that impressive during my workout, and that's a very normal thing, mainly because of the wrist movements. But when I went for a walk, that was a different story, because the HR was very stable and quite in line with a more accurate and reliable device that I used to compare to. The watch also shows you how long you've been burning fat during any of your activities. Unfortunately, for some sports, it can automatically detect when you're starting them. To modify when it starts the tracking, go to the Fitbit app, then account, and then activity and wellness, then exercise, and then adjust the starting time of auto start for your activity. So for example, if I change the auto recognized timing of runs to 10 minutes, every time I go for a run, after 10 minutes, the watch starts the tracking app for running. And if you're wondering, does that mean it tracks the run after 10 minutes and doesn't take into account those 10 minutes of running? No, it does take into account the whole duration of the activity. So here's the thing I couldn't wait to talk about, the battery life. Listen, like I said before, this watch got absolutely trashed when it came out, and the poor battery life was one reason why. Google says that the battery lasts up to 24 hours, and you have to understand that when people like me, basically your typical tech reviewers, say how frustrating that kind of battery life is, it's mainly because they use so many different brands and different kinds of watches, like Garmin watches. And what we do is that we immediately compare everything to the best. In my opinion, after having used this watch for a few days, I can tell you with confidence that while the battery life is not the best in class, it's not bad at all. In fact, because of the super smooth UI and having a Wear OS which allows you to do all sorts of crap, and the relatively small size of the watch, the battery capacity is actually quite good. Now hear me out. I did a battery test for 3 days and the results are actually quite amazing. The first day, I was able to get 24.5 hours and I used the watch quite a lot. The second day, I got 26 hours even though I used a bit of GPS tracking, and the third day I got around 28.5 hours. I'm not kidding, I'm being really honest here, and this was really surprising. But like I said, the first day I used the watch a lot, the second day less, but still used the GPS for a short time, and the third day a lot less, like just checking the time and some notifications, playing around with the watch faces and running some GPS tests a couple times. Now here's the secret how I was able to get these numbers. Although at the end of the day, battery life really depends on your usage pattern, but I noticed the screen timeout by default is way too long, like 15 seconds. So I immediately changed that to 5 seconds, and that's what I recommend to everyone. 10 seconds is also okay, but imagine how much you're saving throughout the day when it's just 5 seconds. The other thing I did was that I reduced the display brightness to its lowest and made sure that the adaptive brightness is on to compensate for that. The last thing I did was that every night before going to bed, I turned on the bedtime mode to prevent the display from turning on accidentally at night. Although a better way to do this would be to go to the Fitbit app, then account, then activity and wellness, and then sleep, then choose your bedtime and wake time so that the watch automatically turns on bedtime mode. I've heard some people recommending to turn off the tilt to wake and touch to wake features, and some saying they don't track their sleep and stuff like that to save battery life. Come on guys, that's a terrible advice. I mean, that's not even a smartwatch anymore. I already gave you 3 reasonable tips about this, but here's another one for those of you a little more active who want to track your activity outdoors. Well, if GPS tracking is not very important to you, I would recommend letting the watch to start tracking activity as opposed to manually starting it yourself, because this way it won't run the GPS at all. And one last thing about the battery life. One of the best ways to use this watch is to have a charging routine. And I think a really good one would be 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the evening. That's all you need, and you're unlikely to ever run out of charge unless of course you will use the watch a lot in between each charge. And by the way, a full charge takes around 1 hour. Now let's quickly go through some of the pros and cons of the Pixel Watch. Let's start with the cons. The bezel is quite big. The small size of the watch doesn't look great on bigger wrists. The curved display is not ideal for those very active, especially if you spend a lot of time at the gym. The dome-shaped design of the sensors can feel like a pointy pressure on your wrist. The fact that you have to deal with more than one app is kind of annoying, but it seems to be the norm these days on other smartwatches too. The really good analytics about your body are hidden behind a paywall. The step counting is terrible. The battery life is not great for pro users and probably serves first-time smartwatch buyers best. The battery cannot be charged on other wireless chargers. And now the pros. The watch is very stylish. You can wear the watch on either wrist and change the orientation so that the crown and button can be positioned on the left or side depending on your preference. The crown makes using the watch much easier. It also has haptic feedback. The UI of the Wear OS is very refined, it's really smooth, easy to use, and feels great to interact with. The straps are really easy to swap. As an extra security measure, you can set up a lock for your watch with a pin code or a pattern just like on your phone, and as soon as you take off your watch, it automatically locks it. The notifications also show pictures. Long text messages don't get truncated. And here are a couple of bugs I found, and I really hope they'll fix them soon. There was this one time that I didn't get any of the WhatsApp messages until I saw them on the phone. The scrolling with the crown doesn't work everywhere, for example in the cardiogram app. There was a few times that the tilt to wake feature didn't work until I tapped the display. And like I said in the beginning, I have a theory about all this frustration, despite this being a decent watch, and my theory is that this is what happens when you start working on a project, then your department is told to scratch the idea, and a few years later, the boss comes back and says, hey, remember the watch we designed and everything? Let's get it ready and release it. Except the idea and a lot of the thoughts behind it are already outdated after a few years. In the meantime, do let me know if you have any questions and watch this video next to learn about some other smartwatches.